Hello and welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. In this episode, we are going to dive into the reality of change because it is part of evolving and growing. Yet, as human beings, we get comfortable in our patterns and in our routines until we aren't anymore. And then we struggle with the ambivalence about whether we want to step into change or not because stepping into change means that we are going to have to do something different. And that creates a little bit of push and pull in our brains, in our emotions, in our belief systems. So, we are going to explore the concept of change, actually using the evolution of this very show, the different choices that have had to be made, the comfort that has happened in settling into patterns, and then the challenge that comes in potentially doing things differently and embracing change when it's right. I'm Meg Rentschler. I am the host of the STAR Coach Show. And as an executive coach and a mentor coach, I work with people around change every day. I see how uncomfortable people can get with change. I also see how people can fall into patterns that really aren't serving them anymore. And as a coach, it's my job to hold up the mirror, to explore that with them. And as a coach, I believe in the process of coaching. I've hired coaches to do the very same thing for me. And in this episode, we're going to look at, when do you determine whether change is right for you? What does that look like? What do you need to consider as a business owner or as a coach partner when you're thinking about whether it's time to make a change for yourself, for your business, in the service to your clients? So we start in that process of just acknowledging change is hard. Change creates a disruption to our flow. It requires us, as I said earlier, to think differently, to potentially challenge our belief systems, to wonder what else could be true. The same things that we challenge our clients to think about sometimes, I'm going to encourage you to be thinking in today's episode. What else could be true for your business, for your relationships, for the way that you're engaging with others? Now, one thing that I have found to be helpful in the over 35 years that I've been working with people to make positive changes in their life is that when we normalize our internal resistance to change, we can acknowledge the discomfort, yet realize that doing things the same way and expecting a different result is actually insanity. And since we don't want to go there, let's explore. Yeah, I get that I have a natural resistance to doing things differently. And I actually encourage you to listen to episode 295, where I dove into the whole concept of ambivalence, because ambivalence is a natural part of change. And when we can normalize that for ourselves, for our clients, then it's not quite so uncomfortable to be in the discomfort. I know that sounds a little paradoxical, but the reality is, when we realize, gosh, this is just part of what I can expect. I can expect that if I start going to the gym and lifting weights, my muscles are going to be sore. I can expect that if cut down my intake of food, I'm going to be hungry, yet my body might be responding positively to that. I can expect that if I think about doing things differently, I am going to feel some resistance to that. I'm going to question myself. It's going to create a little bit of push and pull. So we start by normalizing that. Now, when we think about our business, and we're going to look through the lens of being someone who's offering a service to other people, when I work with new coaches, I just want them to get their work into the world. And often it's when we're new at something that we want it to be just perfect and we hold off and we put off and we've got the questions about what if and if only and all that resistance just about getting our work into the world. So, my mantra is done is far better than perfect. And perfection is not something that we're working toward anyway. What we're working toward is creating a service, an offering, a product that we can offer to others to help them make the changes that they want in life. So we want to get our work into the world. And and I would and I have no qualms about saying, I really encourage new coaches. What are you going to offer? Let's get it into the world. Get your offer out there. However, that doesn't mean when the work is out there that our journey is complete. It is actually when our service is being consumed, when it's in front of the people that we want to have access to that, that we can begin to see, is it the vision that I thought it was? Is it landing on people the way that I thought it was going to? This is the time to get feedback and to make tweaks. So I said that I was going to use this very show as the example throughout this episode of the evolution that it took for me to step into this place of the vulnerability. When I first started the STaR Coach show, I felt very vulnerable. The show actually took me about 3 years from conception to actually jumping out there and having my first episode go live, and I knew at that time that it was not perfect. However, I felt passionate about getting a resource into the world for coaches, for all the coaches that I was teaching and mentoring that had ongoing questions about how to build their skills, how to build their businesses, how to change organizations through coaching. So I knew that I wanted to get that resource out. And it was that passion that gave me the courage to step into it. Might not be perfect, but it's going to be out there. Now, that was 7 years ago, 390 episodes ago, to look at how do I want to make this offering to the world. So initially, my goal was to create a consistent show. So I had to learn the technology, I had to determine what would I do myself, what would I hire to have done. And right out of the gate, finding guests was a huge challenge. It was like, I'm gonna do solo shows and I'm gonna do interview shows, and I wanna bring quality guests to my audience. Now, luckily, I had spent years building relationships with phenomenal coaches, and I find that coaches are incredibly generous and gracious, and I reached out and invited them onto the show, but it was a brand new show with no following at that time. And it was a little scary to ask people, will you come be on the show? And yet, first of all, obviously, it's 390 shows later. So yes, people were gracious to do that. But the learning curve I had at the beginning, how do you get a show out every single week? My main focus initially was learning how to be a podcast host, building consistency, building visibility. Now, over the course of time, the focus shifts a little. There's fine tuning. People would give me feedback about what shows they liked, about how the format was landing on them. and more people were following the show, giving me feedback. This is a loop that kind of continues and grow. Initially, when I started the show, I just knew that I wanted to create a platform for coaches to have this additional resource. STAR, strategies, tools, and resources for professional coaches. 7 years later, what I've learned is that it's not just coaches, but leaders that are my key audience that need the skills to be able to connect with others, learn how to listen more deeply, communicate more effectively, and sort of organically over this period of time, three pillars of shows have become very, very clear. When you go to the website, you see that they're broken down into skill building shows, business building shows, and leadership, coaching, and organization shows. When I started back in 2016, I didn't know that those three pillars were going to be there. And so I ask you to think about the things that you're offering, the services that you provide. How are they evolving? What are you getting clearer and clearer about through your process? And what are some of the things that are coming to you as potential changes based upon the clarity that you've gained? So the more clarity that we achieve, the more strategic we can be. The point of this show is not to say that we just need to change for change's sake. No, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is what is the change that's going to take you to the next level, take your clients to the next level? What are you working toward? What is the impact that you want to have? What's working and where are the gaps? Now, a solution focused principle is that we make better progress, more influential progress with small steps. So maybe your incremental change is what you're looking for. What is it ultimately that you want to get to, and how can you chunk it down to begin to get there? In this process of creating the show, I just knew that I needed to create a show every single week. And I got to tell you, sometimes it was a heavy lift. There was a lot going on. There was, guests that would cancel because they had things that came up or whatever, or rushing to create this, that, or the other thing. But my goal was every single week, I want a show to come out, and whether it was a solo show or a guest interview, I was going to chunk it down and I was going to make that happen. So I ask you, what are your goals? If you need additional clarity on what those goals really are, sometimes it's helpful to work with somebody around that clarity, because when we're only looking through our own lens at our own life, we can get really bogged down in that. I just did a training for leaders around coaching as a leadership style. And one of the things that I heard back again and again was, it is so helpful to look through this partnership, because these leaders had to partner with somebody to coach, because it opens up my perspective. Even as I hear myself saying things to other people, it widens the way that I'm looking at it. And then when I get asked those great questions and maybe have that mirror held up, it expands my ideas. So I want you to think about, when it comes to change and when change is right for you, how clear are you about the direction that you're moving in? Now, for years, initially, the show was something that I did as an offering to coaches. And I didn't make it a priority to monetize it or to really have it create the kind of flow back to my business that people would ask me about. How is your show helping your business? And I think it was helping through visibility, through giving a resource to coaches. It was certainly helping the coaches I was mentoring and teaching. And I wasn't really keeping that bigger view as close to my goals as I really should have. I mean, I'm being completely transparent and honest here. I didn't have that great business plan because I was doing so many things and I just wanted to get a show out every single week. Yet I always knew from before I even started the show that part of having the show, I wanted to offer a deeper experience by having a community of coaches to grow and flourish together, to take the show experience and deepen it through, experiential learning, through being together, supporting one another, learning, growing. And even knowing that that was a priority for me and something that I wanted to grow the show into, I kept putting that off. I kept putting it on the back burner. How often do you have a goal that you put to the back burner again and again because other people's goals come in front of you or other demands come in front of you? And I'm just being completely transparent. I wasn't making the changes that I needed early on to create this vision of the community, to create the vision of an offering beyond the show where coaches could take it that much deeper and learn and grow. So, what I had to do is determine just how much of a priority is this for me. I had to make a change about the way that I was thinking about it. Now, I tend to be somebody who kind of looks at the silver lining in things anyway. And the positive aspect of that is that I had years, additional years, to get a deep understanding of my coaching audience and what they needed. So, my tip and lesson for you is before implementing any changes in your business, it's crucial. It's crucial that you have a profound understanding of who your target audience is and what their needs are, what they prefer, what their pain points are, what they aspire to, and how you're tailoring your offering and the way you're going to market that effectively to their needs. So we don't want to make willy-nilly changes without our target audience in mind. Now, part of understanding their needs is also understanding the way that you're looking at it. And if you are holding on to anything, if you're holding on to beliefs or, gosh, this is the way that I thought I was going to do it, and I don't want to think about things differently, sometimes when we just look through our own lens, things aren't as clear or maybe even as effective as they could be. And that's when it really makes sense to seek input from others. So you want to understand from those people that you're making an offer to, how are they seeing it and what's important to them? The people that are consuming what you're offering are going to be your best source of information. How are they gonna how do they prefer to consume things? What do they ultimately want to get to? And how is your idea falling on them? The other ways to get more information before you lean into a change is to determine what's your competition doing? What's working well out there? What isn't working so well? And then, as coaches, I truly encourage you to seek the guidance of mentors and coaches. What are the trends? What are you potentially doing or caught up in a pattern that outside eyes and outside ears can help you see and think about differently? Now, this is where we want to be cautious about making change. There are as many different people out there with different ideas as there are hairs on your head, right? I mean, there are so many people who want to tell you how to do things, the should, would, could people, right? And I get it. There are experts out there. I work with people to help them understand what they want to do. So I'm not putting any of that down. But what I will say is that it's your responsibility to determine what works for you because my inbox is filled with people who want me to do things differently, to buy their products, to if you only do it this way, you're going to be number one at Google, and your YouTube channel is going to be filled with millions of people. And I'm not even saying that they're not necessarily correct. They might have the secret solution. However, you've got to work within what's right for you, what makes sense for you, what are the resources that make sense for you? So we want to do our research. We want to be in alignment with our values and understand that when we take a path forward, we're doing so after we've done our due diligence, after we've explored what's right. And then it's all about balance. I mean, life is really about balance because when we do lean into a change, after we've done our due diligence in determining either this is the person I want to hire or this is the system that I want to follow, we've got to give it a chance to build momentum, to get traction. If we're making change for change's sake every 2 minutes without letting anything build traction, then you're going to be frustrated and annoyed because you're not going to be getting results. Results tend to take a little bit of time. Rarely is it a flip the switch and we get exactly the results that we want. Doing a weekly show was a huge lift for me with all the commitments on my calendar of executive coaching and teaching and mentoring and, being a mom and all the different things that were on my agenda. But I was committed to doing it. So I researched, how do I want to do that? I looked around for, who do I want to learn from? Who are the names in the industry? Who do I resonate with? What are they teaching? And once I picked a path, because there were any number of platforms that I could have put my show up on, there were any number of ways that I could do the show. There were, different even kinds of equipment I could buy. It's like once you put a stake in the ground, do it, be consistent, and see what kinds of results you begin to get. So, once again, it's about balance because you don't want to keep doing things that aren't working. And at the same time, you've got to get things traction to be able to begin to build. So, it's that clarity about what's your business plan, what are your priorities, what are your values, and who can I work with that believes in me, believes in my vision, but is also willing to challenge me and get me to step out of my comfort zone and expand my ideas and my possibilities. That's when we find the sweet spot of the kinds of change that make sense, the kinds of people that we work with that can provide valuable insight, help you determine the best next steps for your journey. And so, through time and all these years, I've hired people that have worked really well with me and people that maybe were very stuck on what they thought I should do. I was willing to listen to them because I had hired them and their insight was important to me. But ultimately, I really had to make a decision about what was right for me, what aligned with my values. I will tell you that there have been people that I've worked with over the years that have said, "Why are you doing a show?" I don't know that that really is the best thing for you to do, but getting a show out every single week, creating that value for the coaching community, building the following, but also kind of building my business because even though I didn't hold that up the way that I probably should have right out of the gate as being a monetizing sort of business building tool, I will tell you that by sticking with that value and doing it consistently, I have reaped many, many benefits from doing the show and create continuous value by deepening my experience and making choices about who can challenge me to think about this and continue to grow. So, when we think about getting our content out there, that's part of our job as a coach. We definitely, as a coach partner, focus on the client's content. The client brings the agenda. We know all of that as coaches. However, to build your following, to build your audience, you bring content into the world. And through the content that you share, people are attracted to you based upon your philosophy, your methodology, the things you believe to be true, the message that you're getting into the world. Over time, what I have learned in doing this show is that just because I've always done the show in a particular flow, vetting guests in a particular way, solo shows a particular way, doesn't necessarily mean that that is the smartest way to continue. So, yes, you will continue to get content every single week because I really value that. I believe that that is part of my purpose. However, you're going to start seeing some changes come to the show based upon me hiring really smart people to help me think outside the box, me using the experience that I've had from the past 7 years to look at what's really necessary. What is the core principle of the show? And that is to bring strategies, tools, and resources to my audience. However, I have looked at just because I've always done it this way doesn't mean that it's the best way for me to move forward. So, by hiring people to work with, by looking at my business with a fresh perspective, I have been challenged to think about doing things differently. So I've gone from my goal 7 years ago, figure out how to do a podcast, get it out every single week, figure out the technology, hire a team, all those things that I've been doing this way for 7 years. I've realized, hmm, think I've got different goals now that involve me changing the way that I'm doing things. I'm sharing this with you because I want you to be looking at your business and thinking about just because I've always done it this way, is that the way that I want to continue to do it? My new goals are to be more effective in the way that I use my time to still get a quality product out every single week, but to do it differently. My goal now is to use this massive platform, YouTube, to reach more people, to allow you to see the interviews as well as to hear the interviews, to use different forms of video to really up your game for you or give you those resources to help you up the game and to continue to build my audience. So, I was challenged to think about, how are you doing your solo shows? Could you do those differently? In today's episode, this might very well be the last time you see a solo episode like this because I know these things to be true about myself. I love connecting with my audience. I love engaging with people who have similar passions as myself, and that's what the coaching audience is. So I am changing my solo shows to be live streams every month. And I invite you to join me to explore a topic, much like this one or other coaching topics, every single month, the third Thursday of the month at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to hop on a live stream together, and that live stream is going to turn into my solo episode for that month. I'm super excited about this and never would have thought of making this change if I didn't work with somebody who said, wait a minute, let's look at the way that you're doing things. I know that you love to do lives. I know you love to engage with your audience. Why aren't you using your live streams to be your solo episodes? Never would have thought of that. What that does when we think about goals is it puts me in front of my audience. It gives me content to bring to my show for my once monthly solo show, and then I'll have my continuous interviews. And it puts me in front of my YouTube audience that much more. It's a new flow, and I'm super excited to share it with you. Now, there are other things when we think about change and we think about the way that we've always done things. I know over this past 7 years that I've gotten really good at determining who's a good fit for my show, who's is my audience really going to resonate with. So now I'm going to embed and create some new systems for vetting my guests, for eliminating some of the excess work that I do that doesn't make sense because it doesn't change the quality of the process and what it is that I'm offering to you every week. So, as you think through the strategy for your growth and meeting the needs of your clients, I encourage you to get creative and to understand that you're probably going to have stops and starts and bumps along the way. It is part of our growth process. It's not about perfection ever. It's about being intentional, about putting one foot in front of the other, moving forward, strengthening, fine tuning, and building our offerings. You know, when I built my very first membership, the community that I was talking about. I built it on a platform that just didn't work. I got talked into a platform, my fault, that because I thought it would be in alignment with some other things in my business, it just didn't work. I had to shut it down and re-research and begin again. But I held that vision and that dream. I wanted a quality community for my audience. I wanted us to be able to connect, work together. I wanted to make it happen. So let's once again talk about balance. It's about finding the balance between doing that due diligence that I talked about before, making decisions, and then giving it time to create traction. That first platform, I gave it a year because I built it on there. I brought people into the community. We made it work. It wasn't horrible. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So, whether you are hiring somebody, building a website, using a platform for a membership or a program that you're offering or a course that you're giving, Do your research, make a decision, and give it the energy and the time that you need to see, is this going to happen? Because if, like I said earlier, if you stop and start right away, oh, you know what? 2 weeks and this just isn't creating the results I want. To get momentum, you need to give it a certain period of time. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly how much time to give each thing. You're going to have to make that decision. But what I will say is that if you've given it the time on the front end to make the best decision you can, then it deserves a little bit of time to see, is it getting the traction? Now, I know I did an interview with somebody who said, hire slow, fire fast. And I will say that particularly when you're working with somebody, give them time to create the kind of change, the kind of thing that they have promised, but really test it out at the front end before you ever even hire them. Have them show you what they can do. Maybe hire them to do a project before you hire them to do everything all the time. I just hired somebody to do one project for me before I determine whether I'm going to work with her long term. So make as solid of a decision as you can at the front end and then allow time to see results. It's all about the balance. Now, when you are thinking about change and thinking about your business, I just want to give you a few tips that have worked for me and I hope work for you. First of all, take the time to create the vision, the path that you're moving toward. I encourage you, write your goals down every single day. I've heard people say clarity is overrated. And I, once again, think it's about balance. I don't think that you have to be so clear that until it's crystal clear, you don't take any action because we've talked about the fact that you got to get your work out there. You've got to get feedback. The people that are consuming it are the best people to give you feedback. But in my experience, clarity really helps with the best action to move forward. So some clarity, some idea of the path that you're walking on and the stake that you're moving toward helps create that momentum for you. So whether you do a vision board, a mind map, a journal, a a mastermind with other people. Keep putting one foot in front of the other to get towards that vision. Get clear about what's holding you back. And often, in my experience, what's holding people back is that they don't have a plan for the next 6 months, the year, 5 years, 10 years. So, what changes do you need to make to implement that and make it happen? Just remember that change is a fundamental part of your evolution. When you can get clear about that, it will help you with your personal and professional evolution and embrace that change as a catalyst for your growth. Be certain that you're making the best choices you can make at the time with the information that you have, and then put your time and your energy into it. Chunk it down, experiment, and continue to make those changes that make you feel great about what it is that you're doing. Change isn't always easy. And yet, when we have an open mind and we keep a strategic approach, it can lead to incredible opportunities for our personal and professional development, for our businesses, for getting our work in front of the people who need our work. So, thank you for being a part of my world, for exploring, for growing, for considering the new ideas that I put in front of you each week. I invite you to join me the third Thursday of every month for a live stream. I'm going to be sending out more information to everyone about that. If you're not on my list, Be sure to grab one of my free offers at starcoachshow.com so that you can stay informed on everything that I'm doing. Be sure to visit my YouTube channel and watch for posts on Facebook and LinkedIn that are going to invite you to those live streams. Now, if you're enjoying what we're doing for the show, please subscribe wherever you listen. Leave a comment if you're watching us on YouTube, and come back next week where I want to introduce you to Michael Girardi. He's going to talk to us on how to build a following that know, like, and trust us. So until next week, this is Meg Rentschler wishing you the very best for your success. Have an awesome week. Take care.